Chapter 40. As I'd asked, Veldora was trying his best to suppress his aura. Trying, but not exactly succeeding. With his full strength restored, the magicals spilling from him were like a crashing tsunami. Just standing near him made the air feel heavy, like gravity had doubled. No way I could take him into town like this unless I wanted to cause mass panic. So I gave him a quick crash course. Not like that. Try to picture your aura coiling into a small compartment in your chest. Keep it tight and controlled. Speaking of which. Veldora closed his eyes, concentrating. For a few seconds, the air around us shifted. The torrent of energy slowly receded, pulled back like a tide returning to sea. Then, with a confident smile, he opened his eyes. How is this? I blinked. Oh, that's actually a lot better. Gah ha ha ha, I knew it. My manga knowledge has finally proven useful. Truly, those sacred texts are a treasure trove of insight. He puffed his chest out with pride. Right beside me, Seal stood silently, her gloved hands folded neatly in front of her, the trim of her maid uniform catching the light. She tilted her head slightly, watching Veldora with a calm, unreadable smile. Your control is acceptable now, she said softly. At least enough that you won't cause a panic simply by breathing. Veldora stiffened just a little. Oh, of course. This much is child's play for me. He looked away, clearly avoiding her gaze. I caught the twitch in his eyebrow. He was still acting tough, like he always did, but he wasn't fooling anyone. I smirked. You're lucky she's letting you off easy. I am always composed, dear sister. I have nothing to be let off from. Seal stood silently by my side, her posture impeccable as always. With her hands clasped in front of her, she leaned in just slightly and spoke in a low, composed voice, one only I could hear clearly beneath Veldora's dramatic pacing. Master. The food chain process has completed across the soul hierarchy. A considerable number of skills have been gifted to you by those beneath you. I glanced at her, and she continued without prompting. Would you like me to sift through them and execute ability adjust? There was no real reason to hesitate. Yes, please do. She gave a graceful nod and closed her eyes for a moment, as if sorting through an invisible stream of data only she could perceive. The Harvest Festival had done its job, all right. Everyone connected to me had undergone a transformation. Their souls had grown, and because of that connection through food chain, their growth was flooding right back into me. A ridiculous number of skills were pouring in. Dozens, no hundreds, easily. There was no way I could wield that much power as is. Not effectively, anyway. If left alone, it'd be like trying to swing a mountain around with a toothpick. Back in the day, skills were something you had to train years to acquire. Work tirelessly, hone your instincts, awaken your talent, maybe then you'd get one. And now, here I was, drowning in them. It felt wasteful, undeserved, even, but that's why I had her. Seal opened her eyes again, her expression calm. I will now begin the adjustment process. Please allow me a few moments, Master. Take your time, I said softly. And, thanks. She looked at me for a beat longer than usual, and I could swear there was a flicker of warmth in her crimson eyes before she gave a gentle nod. Of course. After a few silent moments, Seal opened her eyes again. Master, using the unique skill Unlimited Imprisonment as a base, the consolidation process has been completed. I felt the atmosphere around me shift, something deep within me trembling as it restructured itself. Seal continued without pause, her voice smooth and unwavering. The unique skill Unlimited Imprisonment has evolved into the ultimate skill Uriel, Lord of Vows. Uriel. I blinked. That was unexpected. Unlimited Imprisonment, the thing that had once sealed Veldora for centuries. The skill that had been a cage for so long, was now something completely different. A vow instead of a prison. A power, born not from suppression, but from trust. My chest tightened a little. The symbolism wasn't lost on me. Uriel, I murmured. A skill focused on absolute control. It specializes in barriers, spatial manipulation, and law enforcement across constructed domains. I have optimized its functions to support your combat style and defensive requirements. Sounds like you made it pretty convenient. Seal looked at me, her tone softening ever so slightly. It is only natural. I am here to make things easier for you, Master. That quiet sincerity, it got to me more than I expected. Veldora, still lost in his own world of dramatic aura manipulation, seemed oblivious to our exchange. That was fine. I needed a moment to breathe, anyway. The powers within me were evolving again. But for the first time in a while, I didn't feel overwhelmed. With Seal beside me, it felt manageable. She didn't need to explain it, I already understood. It's time, isn't it? Seal gave a graceful nod, her red eyes meeting mine. Yes, the hero's seed from the primordial spirit of light, your limiter. With Uriel, I can seal it now. Do it. Without another word, Seal raised her hand. A shimmer of law subtle and intricate wove through the air, almost too refined to sense. I felt it move inside me, silently wrapping around that familiar presence. A gentle snap, the pressure I hadn't even realized I'd been carrying, vanished. The limiter is sealed, she said softly. Your evolution is now fully unrestricted, Master. Power surged through me, not violently, but naturally, as if a gate had quietly opened. My magicules flowed cleaner, deeper. The core of who I was felt, aligned. I flexed my fingers lightly. Much better. I smiled softly at Seal, the warm breeze brushing against us as the glow of Uriel faded. There was something peaceful about her presence, calm, unwavering, home. Seal, I murmured, stepping just a little closer. Thanks for always staying with me. She blinked, just once, the faintest smile forming on her lips. There's nowhere else I would ever choose to be, Master. You know, I murmured, brushing a lock of hair from her cheek, when you say things like that, I really start to think I'm the lucky one. Ciel's expression softened. I stepped closer. My hand rose almost instinctively, fingers brushing against her cheek as I cupped it gently. Her skin felt warm beneath my touch, so soft. She didn't pull away. Her eyes searched mine, unreadable, but unflinching. I leaned in, slowly, almost cautiously drawn toward her like gravity itself had shifted. Our breaths mingled, just a few centimeters more, and Ga ha 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 ha. Rimuru, I have achieved perfect aura suppression. I can now walk past small animals without terrifying them. The sky itself shook with his triumphant voice. I flinched. Seal blinked. Turning slowly, I saw Veldora walking toward, grinning ear to ear, arms raised in victory like he'd just conquered the world. I mean, seriously, isn't this incredible? I feel like a stealthy tiger, unseen, unheard, unleashed. He stopped right in front of us and struck a ridiculous pose. Ciel's expression didn't move, but a traditional folding fan materialized silently in her hand. Oh, she murmured, her tone perfectly pleasant. Unleashed, you say? Huh, yes. Isn't it impressive? Wait a moment, why are you holding a fan like that? She raised it just a little. A bead of sweat ran down the side of Veldora's face. Forgive me. I'm sorry. Sister-in-law. Ciel froze mid-swing. What? Veldora rapidly waved his hands. It's only natural. You're Rimuru's wife, aren't you? That makes you my sister-in-law. Ciel blinked. Then her face turned bright red. I'm not. I mean, you can't just. Before I could say anything, she spun on her heel and vanished into me in a single flash of light. Ciel, silence. You're not going to talk to me for a while, are you? Not even a flicker of response from inside. Veldora, meanwhile, tilted his head. Did I say something wrong? I gave him a long look, somewhere between amused and mildly flustered. You really are hopeless sometimes. Ga ha ha ha, I try. Still, Ciel flustered like that, blushing, stumbling over her words. I didn't expect it, but it's honestly kind of adorable. She always acts so composed, so perfect. I think I might like seeing that side of her a little too much. I shook my head with a quiet smile. There'd be time to tease her later. Right now, the world was still moving. So our preparations were complete. For the first time in centuries, Veldora would walk freely in the outside world, though now in human form, and with his aura suppressed to something short of catastrophic. Probably. I wasn't completely sure, but close enough. With a deep breath, not that I needed one, I stepped out of the cave. Sunlight filtered through the canopy above, soft and familiar. Beside me, Veldora emerged in dramatic fashion, arms flaring wide as he took in the scenery with a satisfied grin. Ga ha ha ha, the fresh air of freedom. The sacred earth beneath my feet. Truly, I am reborn. I gave him a sideways glance. You were never this poetic before. But I didn't have time to deal with his flair for drama, because the moment we emerged, I saw them. At the base of the slope, gathered in orderly rows, were my people. 100 monsters knelt in solemn formation, the clearing quiet but brimming with restrained energy. They had been waiting for this, for me. And as our eyes met, the silence shattered. We have all been revived, without a single person missing. Their voices rang out with pride and conviction, not the fresh grief of a tragedy narrowly averted, but the confident joy of a battle survived and won. I smiled. That's really great. And of course, standing right in the front row, Xian, arms folded, her usual smug grin firmly in place. She gave me a short nod, like everything was right with the world again. Gobzo stood awkwardly beside her, clearly trying not to trip over himself in excitement. Benimaru stood with quiet authority, his crimson eyes meeting mine with calm assurance. No theatrics, just the strength I'd come to rely on. Shuna gave me a gentle smile, warm and composed. She looked more relieved than anything else. Hakuro bowed with silent respect, his hand resting on the hilt of his sword. Soe stood like a shadow beside him, his presence steady, eyes sharp. At the edge of the group, Diablo knelt with one hand across his chest, head lowered in perfect formality. "Welcome back, my lady," he said softly, voice smooth as silk, eyes glinting with restrained delight. And in the front, as expected, Ren, kneeling with poise, her posture impeccable. She didn't need to say anything, just the way her gaze softened when it met mine told me everything. But even so, she spoke. "Welcome back, my lady." That calm voice, that quiet loyalty, it felt like the final seal on everything I had worked for. I gave a soft nod, my smile returning. "I'm home." Ren rose gracefully from her kneel, her violet eyes flicking to the man beside me. "My lady," she asked in a composed voice, "if I may inquire, is that gentleman Sir Veldora?" "Oh, yep," I replied with a smile, lightly nudging the man beside me forward. "Allow me to introduce." I gave him a firm push. "This is lil old Veldora in the flesh. He's kinda shy, but make nice with him, all right." The moment I said that, a heavy silence dropped across the clearing. It was immediate. Every monster present turned their gaze toward the man in question. 100 pairs of eyes locked onto him, mouths slightly agape. Some stiffened. A few may have stopped breathing. Not a single soul dared to speak. I could feel the tension. It wasn't fear, exactly, it was the weight of realizing that the very legend of our nation's founding myth was standing before them, alive and handsome and radiating power like the pressure of 1,000 storms. In the middle of that stillness, Veldora suddenly scoffed. "Wait a moment, enough of that nonsense." His arms crossed as he raised his voice in theatrical dismay, a pout forming on his face. "I am not in the least bit shy, I just had so few people reach my domain while they were still breathing, up to now." His tone was oddly indignant, as if offended at the very idea he could be timid. But it was delivered with such dramatic flair, it echoed like thunder across the silent clearing. And that, of course, shattered the fragile stillness. The crowd broke into chaos. Gasps, confused muttering, some nervous laughter. A few fell over, apparently fainting from the shock. Even Xian looked like she was re-evaluating her entire belief system. Beside me, Ren blinked once, then gave a slight bow. "Understood. I shall welcome Sir Veldora appropriately." Meanwhile, Veldora was already soaking up the attention, hands on his hips and a smug look on his face, utterly oblivious to the fact that most of the people before him were frozen in awe. Yeah, this was going to be a lot to explain later. The commotion eventually calmed, though only after Veldora spent a good 5 minutes basking in his dramatic reveal like he was on stage at some award show. Once I made sure nobody was about to faint again, we headed into the meeting hall. The atmosphere inside was calmer, more focused. The long table had already been set, and the room glowed with a soft, magical light. Everyone had taken their seats. Benimaru sat straight back near the center, arms crossed, crimson eyes sharp. Hakuro stood behind him like a quiet sentinel, calm and observant as ever. Shuna sat elegantly, her hands folded in her lap, offering a serene smile to everyone present. Soe lingered in the shadows of the room, unnoticed by most, but I felt his gaze shift subtly between each of us. Ren stood at attention near door, silent, precise, and dependable as always. Rigurd, ever the enthusiastic elder, looked like he was moments away from tearing up from pride again. Seal stood silently to my right, her expression hidden behind the elegant white mask she now wore. Her ceremonial black and white maid uniform was as crisp and immaculate as ever. She stood straight, composed, but I could feel her aura still slightly shaky from earlier. She had recovered a little from the embarrassment caused by a certain storm dragon's loudmouth antics, but only just. On my left stood Diablo, ever the picture of poise and devotion. His butler-style uniform was perfectly arranged, not a thread out of place. He said nothing, but the slight upward curve at the edge of his lips betrayed a quiet satisfaction, like simply standing at my side was enough. Meanwhile, that storm dragon was reclining way too confidently in his seat. Gah ha ha ha, so this is what it's like to attend a war council. It's like being in one of those old kingdom dramas, isn't it? Yeah, he was definitely going to be like this for a while. As for me, I'd reverted to slime form for Xian. She liked it, plain and simple. The moment she sat down, I hopped into her lap, and she scooped me up with that usual smug grin of hers like everything was finally back to normal. One hand absent-mindedly patted my head while the other rested on her hip, completely satisfied. I wasn't exactly a plush toy, but if it made her happy, who was I to complain? And honestly, watching her act like this, after everything, yeah, I didn't mind one bit. Before we begin, there are a couple of people I'd like to introduce. Everyone turned their attention to me. Still resting comfortably in Xian's lap, I lifted a little slime tendril toward the tall figure standing calmly beside me. This is Diablo. He'll be serving as my butler from now on. Diablo placed a hand over his chest and bowed with graceful precision. It is an honor to serve, my lady. There was a brief silence, half curiosity, half caution, but no one raised a fuss. Good. Then I gestured to the far side of the room, where a certain someone was sprawled across a couch like he'd already made himself at home. And over there is Veldora. Yes, that Veldora, the storm dragon himself. The mood shifted instantly. Yep, that landed. He puffed out his chest with a smug grin, tossing his hair back as if there were a wind blowing just for him. Some jaws dropped, others exchanged wide-eyed glances. Not everyone had recovered from seeing a living legend walking casually among them. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife, and I knew someone was going to break first. It ended up being Rigurd. If I may, he asked hesitantly, lifting a trembling hand. Sir Veldora, what kind of relationship do you have with Lady Rimuru? Oh, here we go. I felt every head turn in sync. The entire room leaned forward slightly, ears sharpened like radar. I could practically hear them holding their collective breath. Veldora blinked. Ah, that, heh. You'd like to know? Yes, by all means. Rigurd practically shouted. Everyone else nodded quickly, even Soe's eyes were subtly watching Veldora now. The old lizard couldn't have looked more pleased. Gah ha ha ha. Very well, then, I shall reveal it to you. He dramatically stood, as if delivering the climax of a stage play, before slapping his hand on the table and declaring, Rimuru is my little sister. The entire room froze. Even Xian's hand, which had been rhythmically patting me a moment ago, stopped in place. I internally facepalmed. I may have said something kind of like that earlier, I muttered, flustered. I mean, we're not related by blood or anything, obviously. It's just, you know. We share a last name now, and we've kind of been together since the beginning, so. My voice trailed off. Indeed, she was born from my magicals. In a way, it could even be said I am her origin. A noble sibling bond, forged from destiny and sealed by fate. I peeked up at Seal. She hadn't moved a muscle, but I could feel her barely contained exasperation from here. Ren tilted her head slightly behind me. A familial bond between a slime and a true dragon, how curious, she murmured. Benimaru looked like he was seriously trying to decide if this was real or some strange joke. Shuna, to my surprise, clasped her hands over her chest. How wonderful, Lady Rimuru has an older brother. I never asked for one, I whispered under my breath. Veldora, of course, missed the sarcasm entirely. Foo ha ha ha, that's right, as her big brother, I shall protect Rimuru with all the power I possess. I sighed and decided to clarify things before he got carried away. Then I told them everything, how I met Veldora 2 years ago, when I was just a weak little slime lost in the cave. How we became friends, and he lent me his name. And how, just recently, I'd finally fulfilled my promise and released him from unlimited imprisonment. Just then, there was a sharp knock at the door. Enter, Benimaru called out, standing at attention. A young guard stepped into the room, saluting quickly. Forgive the interruption. 3 lycanthropes have arrived at the main gate. They say they're envoys from Demon Lord Carolon's domain. The room tensed instantly. Benimaru's brow furrowed. So they are here. I turned toward him. You knew they were coming. Benimaru gave a firm nod. Yes, we received a brief notice through the Eurazania network 2 days ago. Demon Lord Milam had attacked Eurazania, and refugees were already on their way here. We didn't know who they'd send ahead, but I expected someone. That caught me off guard for a moment. Milam already attacked them. I mean, yeah, she declared war on Eurazania and all, but, isn't that a little soon? It had only been. Master, you've been in the cave for 3 days, Seal reminded me gently, her voice brushing against my thoughts like a breeze. Which meant that, the conflict between demon lords was over and done. Yes. A short time later, the doors opened again, this time revealing 3 figures. First, let me congratulate you on your evolution, Alvis the Golden Snakehorn declared as he fell to one knee. Behind him, the other 2 lycanthropeers followed suit, bowing their heads in deep respect. Phobio, the Black Leopard Fang, and Sufia, the White Tiger Claw. The 3 strongest warriors of the Beast Kingdom of Eurazania, Carillon's most trusted retainers. All 3 were kneeling before me. It felt overly formal, honestly. I raised a hand, motioning for them to relax. No need for formalities. Take a seat and tell me what happened with Milam attacking Eurazania. The 3 exchanged brief glances before taking their seats, their expressions grim. Yes, I saw it all for myself, Phobio began, his voice low. The Black Leopard Fang, usually brash and hot-headed, was unusually composed. That alone told me how serious this was. I remained by Lord Carillon's side throughout the entire battle against Demon Lord Milam. He transformed into his beast form immediately, but even so, the outcome was one-sided. Lord Carillon and Milam collided right into each other. He hesitated, then continued with a bitter grimace. And the Demon Lord Milam proved all too superior. The Beast Kingdom is, I am sad to say, no more. The words fell like a stone in the room. Silence took over. Even Veldora, lounging at the side while trying not to radiate his presence too much, stopped humming to himself. Milam had actually gone that far. However, Phobio continued, his brow furrowed. After an unbelievably massive explosion, it was none other than the Demon Lord Frey who delivered the blow that defeated our lord. That made me blink. Phobio clearly shared that confusion. The very idea of demon lords joining forces. I could hardly imagine it. I always believed that Milam had a distaste for such schemes. And, looking back, something else about it struck me as odd. So Milam and Frey had joined forces to take Carillon down. That was definitely odd. I mean, Milam had challenged him to a one-on-one duel, right? She didn't seem like the type to pull a dirty trick like bringing in a backup hitter. And this was Frey we were talking about. She wasn't known for involving herself in pointless brawls. Phobio clenched his fist slightly as he went on. It happened in a flash. After the explosion, Frey flew off with Lord Carillon's body just like that. She only looked at me once, a brief glance, but it stuck with me. At the time, I dismissed it. Thought I was just seeing things from the stress. But now, he paused, lips tight. Frey's eyesight is said to be unmatched even among aerial monsters. She can shoot birds from the sky or pick off prey on the ground from miles up. I know I was hidden, but I'm sure she saw me. And yet, she acted like I wasn't even there. That didn't sound like coincidence. And something else concerns me about her behavior, Phobio added, his voice dropping. I leaned forward slightly, resting my arms over my knees in slime form on Xian's lap. What do you mean? Before he could answer, I felt a whisper in my mind. Master, the pattern suggests collusion. A staged defeat. It is highly likely that Frey and Milam are working under coordinated orders. Ciel's voice, calm as ever, yet there was a sharpness in her tone. She was analyzing things behind the scenes, even now likely catching more than I could in the moment. That also meant I wasn't just imagining how weird this all felt. So you're saying they may have planned this from the start, I murmured. Phobio didn't answer right away, but his silence was as telling as a nod. Apparently, Sufia added, her voice tight with frustration, the direction Frey flew off to was completely wrong. It wasn't toward her own domain. In fact, it was a perfect 180 straight away from her lands. I raised a brow. Then where was she headed? Sufia crossed her arms. From what I could tell, her bearing would have taken her straight toward the Demon Lord Clayman's domain. At that, all 3 lycanthropeers stiffened. Even I flinched. Clayman, really? Phobio's fists trembled in his lap. Alvis shut her eyes with a sharp exhale, her jaw set. Sufia stood up suddenly, her chair screeching back against the floor. I need to go out for a moment. Her voice was trembling not from fear, but from barely restrained fury. Wait right there, Sufia. Alvis was already moving to block her path. Charging in blind won't help anything. Yes, if you're going, then we all need to join forces in our attack. Phobio rose too, slamming a fist into his palm. Hoo boy. These three were about to go full berserker mode. Beastlings, man. Give them one good reason and their blood gets hotter than Ifrit's breath. I glanced between them, Sufia seething, Fobio fired up, and even Alvis, normally the most composed of the bunch, had a dangerous glint in her eyes. I couldn't just let them charge off into Clayman's territory based on a hunch. Even if my gut said they were probably right. They lack discipline, master, but their instincts are not wrong, Seal commented in her usual calm tone. I recommend restraining them until we have more data. Easy for you to say, I thought. You're not the one who has to calm down three overpowered beast folk ready to commit war crimes. Still, she had a point. The last thing I needed was a diplomatic nightmare. I waved a little pseudopod to get their attention. Hey, cool it, you three. I get how you feel, believe me, but running off right now won't do anyone any good. Especially not Caroline. Sufia clenched her jaw, but she stopped. Just barely. Alvis gave me a sharp nod, breathing hard. For now, at least, the situation hadn't exploded. Yet, the way you put it, Fobio. Caroline is still alive. I leaned forward a little, my eyes narrowing. And I don't know what Fry's really like as a person, but there's no way Milam would just let someone barge into her fight without blowing up about it. That's not her style at all. There has to be something deeper going on here. I feel the same way, Benimaru added, arms crossed as he nodded gravely. His tone matched my own suspicions. This didn't sit right with either of us. I took a breath and fixed my gaze on the three lycanthropiers. So listen, we all want to help you rescue your lord. And we will. But don't go berserk on me right now, all. Right, their gazes flicked to me, tense and uncertain. If we don't work together on this, you might end up losing whatever chance you've got to save him. Worst case scenario, you go charging in and suddenly you're fighting three demon lords at once. I really don't want that to happen. So hold your ground, we'll do this right. Fobio looked down, clenching his fists again. Sufia grit her teeth, frustration still thick in her expression. But Alvis, ever the voice of reason among them, gave a sharp nod first. Quote. Understood, Fobio said, voice low but steady. All right, Sufia echoed with a reluctant sigh. Yes, Sir Rimuru, Alvis added, her voice firm. I finally let out a breath. Good, the last thing we needed was more chaos. Especially with things just starting to settle down. We then decided to let them rest and recuperate for a bit. Them, and the other 10,000 or so people who evacuated to town with them, all utterly exhausted. Trekking all the way to Clayman's domain and challenging him to battle right now was absurd. In a short time, we had emergency stations handing out food, and the great meeting hall had lodgings hastily prepared to deal with the influx. We weren't at full strength yet, my people were only just beginning to wake back up. For today, at least, we decided to kick back and relax with a meal together. With everyone now on the same page and the lycanthropiers just barely holding back their instincts, I figured we'd made enough progress for the day. Well then, I said, standing up on Xian's lap in my slime form, let's end the meeting here for now. We've all been through a lot, and there's no point in rushing things while everyone's still processing the situation. Everyone around the table nodded in agreement. Even Sufia managed a reluctant exhale, her tension finally starting to ease. We'll reconvene tomorrow, I continued. Take this time to rest, get the refugees situated, and gather your thoughts. There's a lot we'll need to discuss, especially how to deal with Clayman. Benimaru stood with a bow. Understood. I'll begin preparations to accommodate Urizania's people immediately. Hakuro, Shuna, Soe, Rigard, and the others all gave their affirmations in turn. Seal, still standing quietly at my side with her mask concealing her expression, gave a composed nod. She had recovered just enough from the earlier embarrassment to maintain her usual elegance, though I noticed the occasional flicker of lingering fluster through our link. Veldora's sister-in-law comment had definitely left a mark. Speaking of him, over in the corner of the room, Veldora sat cross-legged with a manga volume in hand, completely engrossed in it. I'd handed him one of my favorites just before the meeting started, mostly to keep him from interrupting again. Judging by the sparkle in his eyes and the silent, "Gaha" as he kept mouthing every few pages, it had worked like a charm. He didn't even glance up as the meeting ended. Quote. That should keep him out of trouble for now, I muttered. The meeting ended, and the room slowly emptied out. The lycanthropiers followed Benimaru to discuss temporary lodgings. Hakuro and Rigard left to oversee the distribution of supplies for the incoming refugees. Xian stood up, gently helping me down from her lap as I reverted to my human form. Seal remained silent at my side, her masked gaze watching everyone with composed calm. She gave a light bow before following a step behind me. Waiting at the chamber doors, ever punctual and poised, was Ren. "My lady," she said, offering a flawless curtsy. "I've prepared your quarters for the evening. If you're ready, shall we proceed?" "Thanks, Ren," I said with a small smile. Without a word, she fell in beside me just slightly behind, as always guiding me down the corridor. Her footsteps were soundless, her presence steady and reassuring. Seal followed silently, keeping a small distance, as if still sulking a bit from earlier. I could feel her attention on me through our link, but she said nothing. "Did everything go smoothly while I was in the cave?" I asked, more to break the silence than anything. Ren nodded. "Yes, my lady, the internal affairs proceeded without issue. Shuna and Xian kept the city running. The moment your return was sensed, all command structures aligned without hesitation." "Glad to hear that." We passed by a few patrolling guards, all of whom bowed deeply at the sight of me, then quickly stood straight again as Ren's gaze swept over them. She didn't say a word, but none dared slacken in her presence. I chuckled softly. "You've really got them trained, huh?" "I expect nothing less of those who serve you," Ren replied coolly. Eventually, we reached my private chambers. Ren opened the door with a graceful motion, then stepped aside to let me enter. Seal followed in behind me and stood near the window, saying nothing as she turned her masked face toward the setting sun. Ren helped me out of my coat and gently dusted off my shoulders, her motions precise and familiar. "Please rest for now," she said. "Let me know if you need anything." I gave a nod. "Thanks again, Ren, you've done more than enough today." She gave a faint smile, a rare one, and curtsied once more before departing, her long black skirt sweeping quietly behind her. The door clicked shut, leaving just me and Seal. And despite the silence, I could feel it, she was definitely still embarrassed. As soon as the door closed behind us, Seal reached up and removed her mask with practiced grace. Her red eyes met mine, still holding a trace of the earlier fluster from Veldora's unexpected outburst. I stretched with a soft sigh and plopped down onto the couch in my human form, crossing one leg over the other. "You've been quiet, my dear wife," I said with a teasing smile, resting my chin on my hand. "Still embarrassed after being called sister-in-law?" Ciel's fingers paused ever so slightly as she began pouring tea. "Master." "Yes, my wife Tilda," I replied, enjoying the way her lips tightened into a line. "I've decided," she said calmly, "that it's in my best interest to simply ignore Veldora's idiocy from this point onward. He clearly lacks any concept of timing." "Oh, come on," I chuckled, brushing my fingers through my hair. "It's not like he meant to interrupt us. He didn't know." Ciel's gaze flicked toward her folded war fan lying beside the window. "If he hadn't called me sister-in-law so suddenly, I wouldn't have hesitated to punish him." "Ah, so you were about to swat him with the fan." I smirked. "I knew I saw your hand twitch." She turned away slightly, cheeks faintly tinged with red. "That wasn't part of the plan." "Admit it," I said, standing up and walking slowly behind her, resting my hands gently on her shoulders. "You liked it a little. Being called that. You thought it sounded nice." Her posture stiffened, and though she didn't meet my gaze, I could see the tips of her ears turning red. "I do not wish to discuss it." That was as close to a confession as I was going to get right now. I leaned in close to whisper, "You're adorable when flustered." Seal let out a quiet breath and muttered under her breath, "I should have hit him harder." "Are you tired, Seal?" I asked, voice low and close to her ear. "No, master, I have been awaiting your orders." Her voice was as composed as ever. But her ear was bright red. I smirked. "Oh, good," I murmured. "Because I've been thinking, you always act so composed around me, always getting the better of me. But you know, I've changed." She tilted her head slightly, curious. I leaned in, whispering, "I've decided tonight I'm going to make you blush, my dear wife." Her entire body tensed. What?" I turned her around before she could retreat, gently but firmly. Her eyes widened in surprise. Finally, a crack in the mask. "I mean it," I said, smiling as I traced a finger down her cheek. "You always toy with me. Always tease. So tonight, I'm taking the lead. You can't stop me." She stared, lips parted, stunned and maybe a little breathless. "Master," she said softly. I leaned in, brushing my nose against hers, watching her crumble just a little more. "Say it again," I whispered. "That flustered, master, I want to hear it in your voice, the one that slips out when you're flustered." Her hands trembled at my waist. You're being unfair, she murmured, looking away. I'm only repaying a fraction of what you've done to me. I leaned in until our lips were just barely apart. And I'm just getting started. This time, I kissed her slow, deliberate, confident. She gasped against my mouth, and I felt the moment her resistance gave way and she melted into me. I broke the kiss with a victorious smirk. Checkmate. Seal covered her mouth with her hand, flushed, eyes wide in disbelief. You really planned this? I said proudly. You've been getting away with too much. So I figured I'd turn the tables. She gave a trembling laugh, cheeks still glowing. I see. Very well, then. I blinked. Seal stepped forward, looping her arms around my neck, pulling me in until our foreheads touched. Then allow me to show you how dangerous it is to provoke your wife, master. Uh-oh. Ciel's voice was low and sultry as she pulled me close, but I wasn't falling for that trick tonight. I'd seen that look too many times before. The way her red eyes glowed when she had me right where she wanted. The whisper of her breath against my skin. The way she always sees the lead. No, not tonight. Before she could press her advantage, I spun her around and gently pushed her down into the armchair behind her. She let out a startled breath as she landed, her skirt billowing around her legs like petals. "Wah, master," she said, for once genuinely confused. I leaned forward, hands on the armrests, caging her in. "You always talk like you're the one in control," I said softly, watching her eyes dart from my lips to my eyes and back again. "But you forgot something," she swallowed. "What did I forget?" "That I know you just as well as you know me." I brushed my fingers along her collarbone, slow, deliberate. Her breath hitched. "You act all composed," I whispered, my voice just for her. "But when we're alone like this, I know exactly where to touch, what to say, and how to make those perfect cheeks of yours turn red." I'm not," she tried, but her voice cracked ever so slightly. Oh, this was satisfying. I brought my lips to her ear and whispered, "You're so beautiful when you're flustered, Seal." Her whole body stiffened. I'm not flustered," she murmured unconvincingly. So it's just my imagination that your ears are this red?" I teased, nipping gently at the tip of one. "Or that you've been avoiding my eyes this whole time?" "Master." I leaned back just enough to look at her face. Her expression was a mess, eyes wide, cheeks burning, lips parted like she was trying to catch her breath. Her elegant mask had completely shattered. "Victory." I grinned. "So, admit it." She turned her head, trying to hide it. "Say it," I said, lowering my voice to a whisper. "I win." She trembled and finally muttered under her breath. "You win." "Louder, Tilda," I teased. Seal groaned and covered her face with one hand. "You win, master." I laughed, heart swelling with satisfaction. This feeling, yeah, this was nice. I moved in and placed a soft kiss on her cheek. "Thank you," I whispered, "for always being by my side." HMPH, she muttered from behind her hand. "Don't think I'll let this slide forever. I will absolutely get you back for this." "Looking forward to it," I said, pulling her into a hug. She clung to me tightly, still warm, still embarrassed but smiling now. For once, I had the upper hand. And it felt amazing. After a few quiet moments, Ciel's arms slipped around my waist, holding me closer with a sigh. Her head nestled against the crook of my neck, the warmth of her breath tickling my skin. "I still haven't forgiven you," she murmured, though the smile in her voice gave her away. "I know," I whispered back, brushing a hand through her silky blue hair. "But you're not pushing me away either." That's the problem. We stayed like that for a little while longer, savoring the closeness. The glow crystals on the walls had dimmed to a gentle twilight hue, casting soft shadows across the room. It was quiet, peaceful. Eventually, I stood up and reached a hand out toward her. "Let's get ready for bed." She blinked at me, then took my hand with a small nod. We moved together, slow, unhurried. I watched as Seal removed her black and white maid outfit with practiced grace, folding it neatly and setting it aside. She looked radiant even in the soft half-light, her bare form calm, composed, yet still bearing the faint blush from earlier. I followed suit, and when we both slid under the covers, there was no tension, only comfort. I curled into her arms, and she pulled the blanket over us like a protective cocoon. My head rested against her chest as her fingers slowly ran through my hair. I could hear her heartbeat, steady, reassuring. "You're warm," I mumbled, already half asleep. "You're soft," she replied, just as drowsy. And like that, wrapped up in each other, we drifted off into sleep. The night held no words after that, only a shared warmth, the quiet rise and fall of breath, and the silent promise that neither of us would ever wake alone again. To be continued.